Hello, my beautiful friends. It is an amazing day. Oh, baby. Can you feel it out there in the air? I sure can. Really glad you're here and with us. Let's wait until these tubes connect themselves before we jump into the business on the day. It looks like they have connected. That's tremendous. Let's do a preview on what's coming up. We got a bunch of election litigation and some concerns about 40,000 damaged voter registration files, 277,000 voter registration problems in Pennsylvania, lots of stuff. We've got something we'll start out with today is the Attorney General from Missouri, and other places are actually starting to dig in on this, are filing a lawsuit to stop the Biden-Harris DOJ from sending unauthorized poll monitors to interfere in the state's election that's happening tomorrow very soon. So they don't want them meddling around in their business. And so they filed a lawsuit. We'll take a look at what it is and what is inside in this 12-pager here filed against Merrick Garland, the Department of Justice Attorney General. Yeah. He got sued along with Kristen Clark and the DOJ, the entity. So we'll go through that. We'll see what's happening, but they're not alone. The RNC is also suing the city of Milwaukee, and we saw a lot of this in 2020, so we're paying close attention to this cycle. Obviously, we've got questions about access to certain areas where you need to be observing the counting of the ballots. And here, the RNC is suing Milwaukee, saying that they did not give them proper access. So we'll take a quick look at that filing and then turn our attention to what is happening in Texas, because now Ken Paxton in Texas is also sending some folks out to keep an eye on what's happening on election activities around the state of Texas. And so he's got some people out there, so it's kind of all over the place. And this was a horrifying clip. If you haven't seen this yet, oh my gosh. Whoopi Goldberg is talking about Liz Cheney becoming the DOJ. And that would just be terrible. So if you want to have nightmares, stick around until we play this clip, because they'll come pretty quickly. I can't wait to go to bed tonight. So we've got that. Then we've got Pennsylvania updates there. This case was an interesting one. This guy filed a bunch of lawsuits in various states. I think Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, maybe another one. But the 1789 Foundation, an interesting group, is suing because apparently there are major lists that are out of order. And we've been covering a lot of these issues before, saying that the secretaries of states, they have an obligation, a duty under the law to be going in and validating their lists. They can't just keep a list and just, well, it's a perfect list. You have to check it. You have to validate it. You have to make sure it's a good list, maintain it. And so they're not doing that. And so they got sued in Pennsylvania, and a court just came down from the Middle District of Pennsylvania, ruled against them. But I wanted to show this to you so you could see how these elections are operating, because he filed a complaint and he submitted an affidavit that explains what happened there, or what is happening there, saying that they're just not maintaining the lists. They're supposed to be cross-referencing it against the federal lists, and they're just not doing it. So we'll go through all of that. We've got some kind of horrified clips from Democrats saying that they're getting a little bit nervous over there. Van Jones was one of them who said that, getting a little bit tight in his purview, from his worldview. So we'll go through it. We'll see what Van Jones says about it before we turn our attention over to Georgia and to Arizona. And so in Georgia, we've got a reversal. Josh McCoon, who is the chair over there in Georgia of the Republican Party, he came back down and said today, huge legal victory in Georgia, because the Supreme Court of Georgia came back down. There's so much going on in Georgia. Hard to keep tabs on what is actually happening, but we'll go through two different cases. This one here, which is about collecting of absentee votes after the deadline, after the election is over. And then the other one we'll take a look at was a battle over the weekend that we talked a little bit, I think we referenced it in passing, but it was the absentee ballot dropbox situation where they created 4 just drop boxes out of thin air. Put them up over there so that you could drop off absentee ballots. Well, the Republicans were unhappy about this. They said you can't just do that out of nowhere unilaterally on your own. And they did in Fulton County, because it's Fannyland. We know how things are operated over there. But what happened is they sued. The Republican Party said that they were going to file a lawsuit. They have now done that. And so we'll run through the complaint. It's a short complaint. And, what's so wild about that, all of these things are just, to be clear, they're anchoring in their objections in case something goes wrong and their side loses at the election, right? So both sides are doing this. Everybody's suing all over the place. I saw an article that this is already the most litigious election in American history. There was a hearing on this yesterday, and the Republicans ultimately lost. So we'll play a little bit of that clip and give updates on that, because those ballot drop boxes will continue, is what the ruling says. So it's 1 win, 1 loss in Georgia. And then we have some more conversations about the red Mirage. Remember this from 2020 flashbacks. They dragged this one out again. And in Fulton County in Georgia, that's where the water main broke, State Farm Arena, and they had to delay the counting of the ballots for about 4 hours. Oops. So he talks about it. It's just a red Mirage, and then there will be a blue wave that comes in after, once they print the ballots and take them off the printer and deliver them. So we'll go through that. We also had a victory in the Court of Appeals here in Arizona. Some updates here, as you can see. Adrian Fontes, we talked about this last week, I believe it was. It's all blending together now. But I think it was last week or Sunday or Saturday, was when we talked about that big bucket of 218,000 voters in Arizona. That's a lot of people. It was 5% of our entire electorate, and we don't know who they are, whether they've got citizenship or not. And so the America First Legal Foundation, they submitted a lawsuit, filed a petition saying, we need the records so that we can see. And Adrian Fontes, who says, well, I don't know what kind of lists we have. He's like, I don't even know if we have it or not. The judge said he didn't really buy his testimony. I think we read through that yesterday. And he then appealed it because he really doesn't want to release that list, while the Court of Appeals says he has to. So we'll go through that, take a look at what they wrote in there. And then there's this news story in Arizona. Apparently 40,000 damaged registration forms could leave some Maricopa County voters in limbo. Oh, just 40,000. Not a big deal. We have got questions about where those ballots came from, why they're damaged, why they're dropping them off at the last minute. Came from a bunch of third-party groups, and a bunch of them have not even been processed. What on earth is this story? So we'll go through it and see what's inside. And the U.S. Supreme Court is bracing for impact, because they know it's going to be a lot, and there's a lot cooking out there. So my friends, I hope you're feeling good. I hope you're feeling energized. Thanks for joining us an hour early. I know the times changed, the clocks changed all over the world except in Arizona. And so here we are, because our clocks didn't change, because we don't do that. I don't know why anybody else does, but we don't do it here. So anyways, Arizona, same time. This will be the new time going forward for the show until the clocks change back again. Really glad that you're here. Thanks for joining us. To everybody else, all 49 other states, I think. So welcome. We also want to remind you, we'll be back here tomorrow starting at the same time, which will be about 5 p.m. Eastern time on the East Coast, which is what Eastern time means. So we'll be going live at that time. And then I think the earliest polls are closing around 6:30 in a couple states. And then we'll have waves of them, I think, 7, 7:30, 8, 8:30 throughout the rest of the night. So we'll be here starting 5 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. I know there's many places to watch the election. It'll be awesome to hang with you here. For those of you who want to hang with us, we're looking forward to it. So, my friends, now, also, if you want to support the show, great way to do that is to grab some gear from our friends over at 2A Republic. We, of course, here believe that the Second Amendment is very easy to interpret. It's black and white. Shall not be infringed. Pretty clear. Not a loose statement or a loose-fitting t-shirt. These are made in the USA. They're based in Arizona. They're my friends in Arizona. Good dudes. If you believe in the Second Amendment, if you think it's black and white, grab some gear. Click the link in the description below. 2A Republic. They come in awesome packages. They make great gifts. And I'll be giving some out this holiday season. So grab some for those people who are hard to buy for. Links are in the description. You can click some of those little things on YouTube. Should take you right over there. And proceeds from the shirt, of course, go to support the channel, but any proceeds that go or come from the Trump shirt are going to go back to the Elon America PAC so we can continue to fight for our future generations. So thanks for supporting our work. Thanks for grabbing some gear. As you can see, made in the USA, baby. It's going to be fun to be sporting this stuff after our victory tomorrow. All right, but we're going to vote. And by the way, this show, it's highly encouraged that you restrict it only to those around you who have voted. Okay, if there's a voter around you who hasn't voted yet, or they don't have a plan, obviously you're here, you're watching, so you have voted. But if you have somebody near you, look around. If they haven't voted, well, it's time to have a conversation with them, if you know what I'm saying. So just look around. I don't know who's in the room with you, but you know what to do. All right, so let's get to business, my friends. All right, if you vote tomorrow, that's okay too, but please have a plan for tomorrow, okay? I think it might be like maddening tomorrow. So just have a plan. If you're like, I got 15 minutes between this meeting and this meeting, probably not going to cut it, all right? Plan for like an hour at least, and make sure you're voting harder than you've ever voted before. And then we can be friends again. All right, so it's tough love today, all right? We have to save America. It's because I love you, and we love each other. It's love, all right. Let's get to it. The Biden DOJ, along with Kamala Harris, who wants to inherit their corruption, are now sending DOJ monitors into various states. A large part of them are going to swing states, as we've talked about previously. Over 80 counties sending their little goons in there to observe for any infractions against fair and free elections. Okay, well, enough already. We don't want the feds in our business, says Attorney General from Missouri, Andrew Bailey, says, breaking. I filed a lawsuit against the Biden-Harris DOJ for sending unauthorized poll monitors to Missouri polling locations. The law's clear. Kamala can't just send unvetted individuals into our polling places. It's illegal, and it undermines our trust in our elections. And we've already seen that other states like Texas and Florida are telling them to get out of here. But this is the first lawsuit that we've seen, and I'm sure their monitors are already on the airplane heading into Missouri. So here's what the lawsuit says. And by the way, Missouri's not alone. RNC is also filing against particular states that are not allowing their observers. And then Ken Paxton from Texas is deploying an election day rapid response legal team. Okay, so everybody's deploying everybody everywhere to observe, which is good. We need a lot of observation. Problem is, last time Republican observers were kicked out of the rooms. That's a pretty big problem. So we'll keep our eye on it. But of course, Missouri is saying, we don't need your federal agents in our business, so get the hell out of here. So it's Andrew Bailey, Attorney General, and the Secretary of State who runs the elections from the state of Missouri, John Ashcroft. Many different lawsuits and complaints we've seen here from Andrew Bailey and Missouri against the Biden-Harris administration, suing Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States. Here's what they say. All right, listen, Merrick. For the second election cycle in a row, the Department of Justice at the 11th hour has announced an intent to displace state election authorities from our business and bring their own little goons, little J-brats over here. Absent exceedingly clear federal authority, the states keep for themselves the power to regulate elections. We got that from the Supreme Court case in 2013, in case you forgot. So to secure elections, Missouri exercised that traditional authority by enacting a law that strictly limits who, besides voters, can be present in any polling location. Poll monitors that are employed by the DOJ are not on that list. Yet, without specifically citing any federal authority at all authorizing its actions, the DOJ announced on Friday, November 1st, its intent to displace Missouri law and place unauthorized poll monitors in polling locations in St. Louis. A couple days before the election. This lawsuit asserts claims under the Administrative Procedure Act. You didn't notify us about this at all. And we're challenging the DOJ's decision to send staff to polling places in Missouri and to monitor the election on Tuesday. The DOJ is set to send monitors to polling locations in Missouri, and their actions are completely unexplained. They're ultra-virus, which is outside the law, overstepping statutory authority under federal voting-related laws like the Voting Rights Act. Like, that's not your power. Get out of here. You can't justify this under the National Voter Registration Act or HAVA or UOCAVA or the Civil Rights Act or the ADA. You have no power here. Get out. The DOJ's actions are arbitrary and they're capricious because they are unexplained. They just did it. Hey, we're showing up unannounced. Did you hate that, the pop in? DOJ popping in your election? No. Don't answer the door. Plaintiffs seek a declaration that the DOJ's actions, in other words, Missouri wants the court to say that the DOJ is violating the law. They want an emergency injunction prohibiting the DOJ from coming in. They say, well, you know who we are. We're Missouri. We're a sovereign state in the United States of America, and we're suing to vindicate our rights. And plaintiff Andrew Bailey, he's the AG of Missouri. Now, Merrick Garland, is the Attorney General of the United States. Kristen Clark is the head of the Civil Rights Division, and the DOJ is an agency, unfortunately, a part of the United States government. Now, we continue. They tell us, on November 1st, the DOJ, just 2 business days before the election, they issued a press release that we read here on the channel. The press release announced that the DOJ would dispatch, quote, personnel from the Civil Rights Division and U.S. attorneys' offices to become federal observers from the Office of Personnel Management. Now, the press release identified a total of 86 jurisdictions spanning 27 states in which personnel would be dispatched. One of the jurisdictions is here, St. Louis, Missouri. Now, the press release does not explain which staff or which divisions or offices will monitor each of these locations. Neither the Secretary of State nor the Attorney General, for example, neither one of us, has heard from the DOJ whether plans to place officials are going to be happening from some other office in state polling locations. Now, the press release didn't cite any specific authority for their actions. It simply noted that the DOJ has, quote, general authority to enforce certain federal laws, including all this stuff: Voting Rights Act, the National Voting Registration Act, HAVA, UOCAVA, ADA, and other things. Yeah, but the press release never states whether any of these laws, in fact, gives, for example, their people authority to enter state polling places in contravention of state law. Like, it's great. Thanks for referencing all of these giant books. Is there anything in those giant bills that says you can come into our state and usurp our sovereignty? Because unless you point to it specifically, that's neat that there are all those big bills that exist. Nor have the defendants, the government, DOJ, attempted to communicate any rationale or cite any law to the chief election authority in Missouri, called the Secretary of State, nor to the chief law enforcement officer, Andrew Bailey. They just are showing up. We have reached out to DOJ to seek an explanation. What do you mean? Get them on the phone. What do you mean you're coming to my state to monitor our elections? What? And they've heard nothing back. Now, this is not the DOJ's first attempt to inject unauthorized federal officials into polling locations, contrary to Missouri law. Their attempted dispatch, DOJ attempted, historically before, to dispatch personnel to jurisdictions within the state of Missouri back in 2022. In fact, in 2022, Ashcroft told them back then that their actions were a violation of state law. He sent them a letter in 2022. He said, don't you dare send anybody to our business, into our house. And guess what? The DOJ reversed course. They did not send personnel into polling places during November 2022. They stayed home. Now, the jurisdiction as identified in 2024 in Missouri has no overlap with the same one in 2022. In 2022, they sought to send federal officials into voting locations in Cole County, this time St. Louis. Now, the presence of the DOJ violates our laws. It permits only certain categories of persons to be present in these locations. The only people who can be back there are voters, minor children accompanying the voters, poll workers, election judges, etc. None of the categories include federal DOJ officials identified in the press release. You're not on the list. Sorry. I don't care who you are. Nobody gets in if you're not on the list. While Congress can pass legislation to enforce voting rights, Congress's power to do so is limited to remedial or preventative power. And Congress would need more clear language if they want to do this. Now, here's the specific statute from Missouri. They say, defendants have not identified any language in the law, much less exceedingly clear language that they think can justify displacing Missouri's state law. Now, as they did in 2022, they have refused to identify any federal law that they believe authorizes their actions. And so we assert that they're in violation of the rules. The DOJ has not identified any authority where they can do this. They've identified a number of statutes that they enforce, which is great. They can enforce a bunch of things, but what gives them permission to come here? They have not specifically cited any statute that gives the DOJ authority to be in Missouri polling places on Election Day. In fact, their generic reference to federal voting laws that the DOJ can enforce is especially wanting, because the press release states that even staff members from outside the DOJ will be placed into polling places. The press release from the government says that staff from the Office of Personnel Management, okay, so not even the DOJ, from a different entity, will be placed inside polling locations, even though that agency is an independent agency with no apparent authority whatsoever to enforce federal voting laws. Missouri law provides a list of who may be admitted to a polling place within the state, and the DOJ cites no authority as to why they can get in. So they don't fall within any categories. And to be sure, another part of the law allows for law enforcement officials at the request of election officials, or if they're in the line of duty, they can come in. Law enforcement officials can come in. But guess what? They're not law enforcement officials on their little field trip list from the DOJ. It's not them. They don't qualify. Missouri law defines law enforcement officer as officers authorized to carry firearms and make arrests. That's not who they're saying are coming in. They say it's personnel and observers. So they're not law enforcement. So there is no exception under Missouri law. And so they are violating our state laws. Their actions outlined in a press release are arbitrary, didn't even talk to us or tell us about it, totally capricious, not in accordance with our state law. And so they're not allowed to come in, and we're entitled to relief. Everything that they said in their press release should be declared unlawful, and they should be stopped from taking any action in Missouri. So we reassert these challenges. We say that the APA also says you have to give us fair notice and due process. The Administrative Procedure Act says agencies just can't act in an arbitrary and capricious manner. You have to give people a rationale, an explanation for what you're doing. They have not articulated any explanation as to why they should come into our state. They've made no attempt to cite any authority. They haven't cogently explained why it's exercised this discretion. And they've outlined stuff in a press release that should all be declared unlawful. And so therefore, this court should declare the DOJ's actions of sending monitors into these states unlawful, saying that they should be restrained and enjoined from doing anything that they talked about in their press release, and you should award us attorney's fees, and I hope they get it. Signed by Andrew Bailey, by Joshua Devine from Andrew Bailey's office, and a good filing there. So we'll see if the DOJ takes the hint and then stops with their observations or their monitors. We'll see. But they're probably on an airplane, maybe landed already there in Missouri. We'll see what hotel they're at. But this is another lawsuit from Jason Calvi. The RNC sues City of Milwaukee over election observers, the suit alleges. Milwaukee Elections Commission has been arbitrarily limiting and prohibiting members of the public from observing all aspects of the voting process at polling locations in the city of Milwaukee. So state of Wisconsin is where this one's being filed. So the prior filing, of course, was in the Eastern District of Missouri, so not too far away. But we've got Republican National Committee, City of Milwaukee Election Commission, and they're suing now. They're saying the Wisconsin Supreme Court has said that we have to protect the integrity of our elections, and we are not being afforded the rights to access the location. So RNC sues City of Milwaukee over election observers, says that they've been arbitrarily limiting and prohibiting members of the public from observing all aspects of the voting process. So it's everywhere. So Ken Paxton has his people deployed, and Liz Cheney maybe has her eyes on the Attorney General's seat. So here's what Ken Paxton said. He's got people out traveling around too. I have deployed an election day rapid response legal team in major counties throughout the state to monitor day of election activity and address litigation arising from the election. The election day rapid response legal team will be equipped to enforce election laws and take immediate action on any contingencies, including issues seen in previous elections like ballot shortages, extending polling location closures, improper extension of voting hours. Similarly, the OAG will prepare and take defensive action against activist groups who might attempt to influence the election through litigation. The Election Day Rapid Response Legal Team will coordinate with the Texas Secretary of State to ensure that all issues are addressed immediately and that the Texas elections are fair and secure. There is no issue more important and more fundamental to our nation than election integrity. The Election Day Rapid Response Legal Team will be on the front line on November 5th. We will defend the ballot box from any bad actors seeking to unduly influence or illegally undermine Texas elections. And there were monitors who were also on the list to go to Texas, I do believe. I think we saw that yesterday. So the question is, these monitors who are on their field trips all around the country, wherever it is they're landing, will they be allowed to actually monitor, or are they going to be staying in their hotel rooms? Okay, in Missouri, they may not be able to come out because they may want to do what they did in 2022, but in other states where those people are not filing lawsuits, will they be able to go into the polling locations, or will they just have to go hang out and go in the lazy river at the hotel? I don't know. So we'll keep our eye on it, and it is happening in Missouri. In the Viewland, Liz Cheney wants to be a part of the DOJ, or at least the ladies from The View want her to be a part of the DOJ. And that is one of the most horrific things you could possibly imagine, isn't it?
So I have a question. Are you also a lawyer?
Yeah. I am.
So you could conceivably be a great AG if this was... Because, and I say this because your moral core is magnificent.
Wow. Yeah, like she even is so morally courageous and filled with integrity that she got Cassidy Hutchinson to lie after her third or fourth interview. In fact, she was having text message conversations with her, knowing that she was represented by an attorney called Stephen Passatino. Lawyers know they're not supposed to communicate with someone who's represented by counsel. Liz Cheney was communicating with someone who was represented by counsel, got her to fire her attorney, got her new attorneys. Now she's got a book deal. She came out, had a whole little fake conversation about Trump ripping somebody's clavicle open. Totally ridiculous, unvetted, unverified, in fact, opposed by other people who witnessed nothing like that. But she buried all of it and then put on her little show trial. And now Whoopi Goldberg is saying she's filled with moral courage. Incredible.
And I know you probably don't want it, you don't want to think about it, but I just feel like I would feel a lot better with you leading the FBI, the CIA, the NBC.
Gonna puke my guts out. All right.
So I'm just saying, should it be floated? Please think about it.
And under the radar.
We have to get Vice President Harris elected.
Yes.
Really, like,
well, you know, I'm.
Why? So she can be AG and run the FBI? Oh, man, I've said a lot of bad things about Liz Cheney because she's a bad person and she deserves it all. So if she's the AG, I'll see many friends inside the gulags, but we're not letting up. Liz Cheney is a bad person.
You're putting
it out there in the universe.
I'm putting it in the universe.
Manifest.
Because that's how we do things. Go ahead.
Gosh, can you imagine Liz Cheney in charge? Whoopi Goldberg wants the Liz Cheney and Big Dick Daddy in there. Are you kidding me? To run the DOJ and run the CIA? What kind of psychopathic government do they want to have there? So that's horrifying. Now, if you know anybody who hasn't voted yet, do me a favor. Just show them that clip, all right? And just say, do you want this to happen to America right now? Look at this. Make them look. You know, like when you're scolding somebody. Look at it. Look at it. Make them watch this clip because that should motivate some people to get out to the polls. We cannot have AG Liz Cheney. She'll send more kids to die. That's her whole MO. All right, so let's carry on. We've got more updates out of Pennsylvania. And here was a new ruling. In Pennsylvania, a federal judge is now saying you can't ask too many questions about those 270,000 plus people who are on a list to vote who may not have been checked against the actual list to validate whether they should be voting or not. The lawsuit came from this organization called 1789 Foundation. There were a slew of lawsuits that they filed in multiple different swing states because these issues are much the same. In other words, the states are obligated to maintain their voter lists. One of the ways they do that is by requesting access to the federal databases, so the people who register at the state level can be compared and cross-referenced with the federal list. And if you are not a citizen, for example, you get booted off the list. Well, the problem is the states are not doing the work. They're just not interfacing with those databases, and they haven't been doing it for some time. So there's a bunch of problematic names on the list. 1789 Foundation have identified some of these potential issues, filed a lawsuit, and here's what it said. Now, the federal judge just came back out and ruled against them. We'll come back to that. But let me show you what's going on, because this, I think, is a critical component to our election infrastructure. It's all about the lists, really. They want people on the lists legally and lawfully in some way, shape, or form, even if they're non-citizens. And you'll notice this language that has come up a lot. I've watched this language change. They don't say in their videos, they don't say we want every citizen's vote to count. Just pay attention to this. You'll hear this out there. We're going to make sure every citizen's vote counts. That sounds like you should hear that, right? Like, why isn't that in the advertisements? Because they don't want every legal citizen's vote to count. They don't say that at all. And there was a clip from Jen O'Malley and their lawyer, and she didn't say that. She said, every legal vote, because you can be a non-citizen and be on the rolls and still be allowed to vote. How do we know that? Well, because they were going to do that in Virginia. The DOJ sued to put non-citizens on to make sure that they could get ballots so that they could vote. And we know that some did vote in various locations, right? People are being prosecuted for being non-citizens and voting. So people will be voting. And as long as it's a legal vote, it's good enough. It doesn't have to be a citizen's vote. It just has to be a legal vote. So pay attention to that dynamic. You'll see it everywhere. I'm seeing a lot of it from the Democrats. But here is what they're saying. They're saying, well, the people who are legal votes are not citizens. They're not actually legal votes. And so you should do maintenance of the list to kick them off. But as long as they're on the list, for the Democrats' point, it's valid, whether they should be on the list or not, because it's the first past the post gets the victory. Now, here's what this says. It says, this lawsuit seeks to enforce the public inspection and list maintenance provisions of the National Voter Registration Act. You have to check the list. It says, requiring that Pennsylvania must maintain voter registration lists by removing ineligible voters. Under the NVRA, voter removal is mandated when registrants move, when they fail to respond to a confirmation notice, and when they don't vote in the next two federal elections. Okay, so a bunch of people theoretically could have gotten a notice, still be on the rolls, and not removed. Now, the NVRA, and Jocelyn Benson is using the same thing to keep people on the rolls. It provides registrants who fail to respond to confirmation notices protections against premature and improper removal. There's a waiting period, and so that people who don't respond to multiple years may then get removed. Of course, there must be some means of delineating voters who respond to their confirmation and others who do not. So you get a notice. If you don't do anything, we're going to take you off the list. For that reason, those who do not respond to the confirmation notices are referred to as inactive. Now, the term inactive does not mean that the registrant is not eligible to vote or is prohibited from voting. This is the same issue that Jocelyn Benson we've discussed with her. In fact, all inactive registrants are registered voters. An inactive registration merely is a demarcation that's attributed to registrants who do not respond to confirmation, that they might be removed. Now, the NVRA is also cognizant of the need to protect the fundamental right to vote. Now, according to Pennsylvania's statistics from the Secretary of State, this is where it gets interesting, they reported to the Election Assistance Commission that there are at least 277,000 inactive registrants who were sent confirmation notices prior to the 2020 general election. That's 2 federal election cycles ago via forwarded mail who did not respond. and 2 federal elections have lapsed. But guess what? All 277,000 names are remaining registered to vote in November. So if the national law says you got to maintain this stuff, you got to remove the inactives after 2 cycles, why haven't you done that? Now, upon learning of this, Citizen AG submitted an open records request back on October 4th. And pursuant to NVRA's public inspection provision and Pennsylvania state law, requesting to inspect or receive copies of these, we did that. On October 11th, the Secretary's office sent, quote, an interim response stating, well, we'll send you the list, but it's going to take another 30 days. Under Pennsylvania law, that's a denial. So we now commence this action to get those records, to protect the fundamental right to vote. Without the injunctive relief, without knowing who is on this list and removing these people, there is no way to distinguish which of the 277,000 registrants are eligible and which of them should have been removed under the law. Remember, federal law makes this removal mandatory. So Citizen AG and Pennsylvania members have a legitimate concern about this. Millions of Pennsylvanians are concerned with the integrity of the electoral process, and this concern translates into discouragement to voting. Due to the irreparable harm, we're filing a motion to stop Secretary Schmidt from ignoring the federal law, the NVRA, and make these numbers, make available the records that we've requested available for inspection, saying the court has jurisdiction and the law makes this mandatory. Federal law makes removal mandatory. A voter with an inactive registration may still vote even on election day, but the rules say there's a maintenance process. We have all these statutes that make this happen. And so we know what the gist of this is. We also have this affidavit, this declaration from Eric Scharfenberger. He says, I'm over 18. If called upon to testify, I could tell you the following. Says, I'm the director of operations for 1789. Citizen AG is dedicated to protecting the rights of American voters. Says there's a variety of reasons voter rights can be diluted. And so in furtherance of an investigation into Pennsylvania, he says, I discovered inconsistencies with the statistics reported to the Election Assistance Commission that revealed that Pennsylvania failed to remove 277,000 registrants who did not respond to removal notifications. Now, says more specifically, upon reviewing their responses, I discovered that Pennsylvania sent out 753 confirmation notices before 2020. Of the 753, look, that's so many people. 753 notices like you're going to be canceled. It's crazy. So many people. 116,000 of them responded. This is a very low return rate. Based on these figures, a minimum of 637,000 people were sent confirmation notices and did not respond. Now, under the law, the federal law, registrants who do not respond to confirmation notices have their registrations switched to inactive for the statutory waiting period, which is the next 2 federal cycles. The 2022 midterm is the second federal election, and that was concluded. So in this report from 2022, which was published in 2023, which consisted of information that was collected during a period that began in 2022, Pennsylvania reported that they removed 360,000 people after that cycle. When taking the 637,900 who did not respond to the confirmation notices and subtracting the 360 that they did remove, there's still 277,000 people who did not respond to their confirmation notices that still are registered. Now, under the NVRA, each of those peoples who did not vote in 2020 or 2022 because they got the notice before 2020 should be removed. True and correct copies of the reports, they say all of our numbers are here attached as Exhibit 1 and Exhibit 2. If you want to look at them, look at them. Because this data and our records containing this information falls within the scope, I submitted an open records request. And he says, I wasn't late on this either, by the way. Like, I'm not filing this late. October 4th was the earliest date by which I could have submitted my request, as I had just learned of the violations upon which this action is based less than 24 hours prior. Because I think he got some data. On October 11th, the Secretary's office sent an interim response At no time did we agree to an extension. We attached their denial here. And so in order to get here, I've had to expend this guy, Citizen AG, to expend substantial resources to investigate this. Saying the resultant impact of this caused us to suffer due to diversion of our resources because they're just dragging their feet on giving us these details. This diversion includes things like staff hours and other time. And so we're entitled to relief, help identify and maybe segment these, or give us the records, really, is what they're asking for, from Eric Scharfenberger there in Pennsylvania. So interesting filing. Now, the court has come out and said, no, you lose. You're not going to get access to these things. Fresh out of the oven, November 4th, the day before the election, says, okay, you guys sued, and here's why you're not going to win. And it's a lot of law here, so we'll just hit the highlights. Says they filed a motion and we're asking about injunctions, saying that they're alleging that they violated the National Voter Registration Act. See a lot of copy and pasting from the statutes. We can just fast forward through all of it and just see what the judge is saying. We have a section on standing. So can you even sue? Is he going to dismiss it based on standing? Let's see. Here he says, I'll be irreparably harmed. So given these circumstances, the court will proceed with the merits analysis of the pending motion. So he's going to move forward on it. So we'll fast forward through organizational standing. And in conclusion, as we continue, he says the complaint alleges that the request was sent on time, federal holidays, talking about the timeliness of the records request. Said they failed to demonstrate a likelihood of success. They've not set forth any viable assertion or argument that they're not going to comply with your records request. Oh, so the judge is just saying, well, you're going to get it. Just relax. You submitted it on October 4th. And so they say they'll give it to you by the 12th. Now, although the court recognizes that the federal election will be held on the 5th, you haven't explained why you need the records before that day. So you'll get them. They're just going to come later. And we're not going to do anything about it in the meantime. The assertion, he says preliminary, the assertion that there exists 277,000 registrants, they say is purely speculative. As noted by the secretary, he says, well, they say this, but the numbers they cite don't reflect individuals or voters. Rather, as clearly identified in the report, he's saying that these are also sent notices to voters who also may have moved. So their explanation for it is that we often send more than one notice to the same voter, and so you're looking at maybe addresses. So the 753 figure includes multiple notices sent to the same voters. So that number is a list of notices, not a list of voters. Got it. All right, I'm sure. Says that they compound this error, saying that these statuses are constantly changing. And so you really can't ever know a number. Says inactive voters could die and all sorts of things. So fails to show how they're out of compliance. They've not demonstrated they're going to suffer any harm. You're going to get the records anyways. And so for the foregoing reasons, they've not met their burden. You're not entitled to an injunction. They're not going to do anything with those voters. You haven't demonstrated you're going to succeed. And you'll get the records. You'll just get them after the election is over. So those votes will count. And you're not going to be able to identify or do anything about it until after the momentum is far beyond. And the challenge is we'll probably have to start anew in the aftermath in new claims. So interesting. I do think that the lists are highly problematic, which is why they fight tooth and nail to not disclose any of the records. They know their lists are bad. Okay. Just think about how bad your contacts list is on your cell phone. Is it nicely maintained? All right. Do you have it all in nice order? You know who everybody is, their first and last names, and when their birthdays are and everything in your contact list? No, it's not good. Even how about for your office or your facility? Is it good? Does anybody maintain the list there? No, it's not good. Lists are hard to maintain. And the idea that we're going to put a bunch of bureaucrats in there who have an incentive to make sure the lists are not maintained are maintaining the lists, not going to happen. So, of course, Pennsylvania is a key state this cycle. A lot of election litigation happening there. And one question that's being asked is about the early voting and when we're going to get votes and returns from Pennsylvania. Are we going to get them election night, or is it going to take multiple days like the Democrats would prefer?
Okay, so you said that you're optimistic about Pennsylvania. Here's something that may cause you concern. Early voting, 2024, Democrats have put in 971,615, Republicans 571,725. Compared to 2020, you're down 42%.
Wow.
Republicans are down 8%. And here is what Jim...
Just look at those numbers. 1.7 million for Democrats in 2022 at about this time, down to under a million. Numbers are huge. Republicans are about the same, a little lower than 2020, which is not good, but their numbers are bad.
Messina said on Sunday with Jen Psaki on MSNBC about the early vote. Listen here.
What's their biggest concern right now if you're the Harris team?
Well, look, I think it's a couple things. The early vote numbers are a little scary, and you and I have been texting back and forth. Republicans didn't do what they did last time. Last time Trump said don't early vote, and so they didn't. Republicans do have an advantage in early vote numbers. When the early vote come in, it's going to look a little bit different than 2020, and that's scary.
So he says it's scary what he's seeing in the early vote. What do you say?
I say that I hope folks will get out there and vote if you haven't already. Exercise your right to be a part of our democracy. And to your viewers, remember, we won't have final results here in Pennsylvania
Of course, but does it
for
concern
several
you?
days
Does it concern you,
after
Senator, the
November
way it
5th.
concerns Jim Messina?
We won't have final results for several days. Why? Because you're going to be printing them and delivering them in wheelbarrows again?
Well, sure, I'm concerned about this election all over the country. It is going to be razor thin. We're going to be working on it until the last hour. Part of why I've been campaigning across Pennsylvania and encouraging people to come out and vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz is because I think this is very close.
All right, so Pennsylvania Republicans, we got to pump these numbers up. All right. Republicans down 51,000. We need, if you're in Pennsylvania, time to get on that text message horn and text everybody you've ever known or met or loved. Make sure they get out to vote. It's time. All right. So we've also got new reports here. You can see same numbers showing from David Chapman. It says early voting in Pennsylvania 2 days out. Big swings. GOP are at their 2020 level turnout. Dem is way low. So Firewall is going bye-bye. Van Jones, not happy about it. You can see a clip from our friend Colin Rugg. What's up, Colin? Shared this one from Van Jones.
Worried, Philadelphia is where we've got to run up a big margin. But Philly overall has been trending down, not in terms of going toward the Republicans, just people not getting out to vote. And so you got people out there like Pastor Carl Day, who's got a bunch of young men with him, knocking on doors, trying to get people to come out. It's a bigger, tougher fight in Philly to get that vote count up than it has been in the past. That has me worried. The other thing that has me worried is that the Jewish vote in the suburban areas, Biden won the Jewish vote by 70%, 70-30 last time. Some polls show Kamala at 50-50.
Oh,
that is 70,000 votes we bled away. That is the margin for victory. So you got...
Wow, man, Josh Shapiro might have been a smarter pick, huh?
Groups like Zioness, Amanda Berman out there fighting to get the Jewish vote back on board. This is a tough...
Trump campaign doing ads
and
to
the
try
Trump
to...
campaign pushing the other direction. So this is it is door-to-door, bruised knuckles, tired legs, a lot of coffee, and I'm nervous and worried, and I'm not going to be anyway until this thing gets called.
Okay, is there anything that is making you happy about Pennsylvania?
No, there's nothing making me happy about Pennsylvania. You got David Urban out there causing us trouble in the rural parts of the state. Get David Urban on this show and keep him here all day, and then I'll feel better.
Just don't let him leave.
I don't want him out there.
Same question to you. What makes you... What is...
All right, so Van Jones getting a little bit nervous on the election results there in Pennsylvania, which it's good news for President Trump. And if you're out there in Pennsylvania and you know anybody in Pennsylvania, get them out to vote. It's go time, baby. All right, so let's turn our attention to what's happening in Georgia now as we just continue to move throughout America. And did we go anywhere in particular? We went to Missouri, then to Pennsylvania, then down to Georgia, then we'll go to Arizona. Okay, all right, see how we're going? We got updates in Georgia starting now. Victory in Georgia, the Supreme Court reversing a lower court ruling celebrated by Josh McCoon. He is here as the chairman of the Georgia Republican Party. Tons of election litigation happening in Georgia. We'll talk about two items here today. First one is about accepting ballots after Election Day, which should be a pretty obvious one. The election should be over. But many states are trying things like, well, if you got your ballot sent late, you should be allowed to return it late. Other states fighting over whether the dates on the ballots should matter or not. If it's smudged or if it's not written on, Democrats want those to count. Even if it's not written on, they lost that one in Pennsylvania. But tons of battles happening. Just fresh out of the oven, a reversal. Huge legal victory, says Josh McCoon. Says the Georgia Supreme Court ruled in favor of the RNC and the Georgia Republicans, saying no election office in Georgia can extend voting to accept ballots after Election Day. Seems pretty obvious, but had to litigate that because the Democrats wanted it the opposite. Says thank you to the GOP, Chairman Whatley, Laura Leah Trump, RNC vote, and our incredible legal team. Very short order. It says, from the Honorable Supreme Court in Georgia, says upon consideration of the emergency motion of the appellants, the RNC and Georgia Republican Party, as well as the briefs filed by the parties, says the emergency motion is granted. Saying consistent with Georgia law, the Cobb County Board of Elections and Registrations may count only those ballots, those absentee ballots received by the statutory deadline of 7 p.m. on Election Day, November 5th. It's like, why do we even have to litigate this? Because they wanted to deliver them late. The board shall keep separate the absentee ballots of, quote, any affected voters as identified by the prior order that are received by the board after 7 p.m. Keep those separate in a secure, safe, and sealed container and don't destroy them. The board shall notify the affected voters of the 7 p.m. deadline for return of their absentee ballots in the same manner as delineated by the trial court, okay? So tell those people, because there was a lawsuit presumably about a certain bucket of voters. They said they should be allowed to return them late. Nope. Tell them no. Tell them by email, text, or public announcement to remove any doubt that any voters that you sued about, it doesn't pertain to voters entitled to vote under UOCAVA. Only in your case, all right? This only applies to this case. It's not pertaining to others who are overseas voters under the federal law. So you see here, this one judge was disqualified. So Republican Party, happy about that one, saying that the ballots got to be in, which makes sense because you don't want to give people, you don't want to end the game and then give the other team, an extra 5 shots. The game's over, except you can just keep shooting for another 5 minutes. Just keep shooting the ball. It's over. No, you guys go sit down. The law says you're sitting down now, except for this seat. You guys just keep shooting. Not a big deal. So they're happy about that. Now, simultaneously, Republicans also fought this one. And a lot of these are kind of just expiring, right? They happen so quickly that you can't even litigate them. This is part of the problem. For example, this popped up instantly. Fulton County, Fannyland in Georgia, they said this on their website. They said, hey, guess what? We now have absentee ballot drop boxes are available for advanced voting hours, and they're going to just pop them up in new locations. So 4 election offices around Fulton County will be opened throughout the weekend to accommodate voters who want to hand return their absentee ballots. And apparently, right, it sounds like this is a minor thing, and it may be minor in this one instance, but it's about the changing of the rules. And if they change these rules, they change other rules and so on. So Fulton County just says, let's just pop some new ones up. They did. You can see where they were located. Republicans were not happy about that because it's not allowed. And so they sued, as they said they would. Filed in Fulton County, Fannyland, Fulton County Republican Party and the Georgia Republican Party versus Fulton County. Spent a lot of time there with Fannie and Wade. They say, all right, listen, we're suing because we are the Georgia Republican Party, and we want to make sure elections in Fulton are conducted in a free and fair manner. Says Fulton County has the Republican Party has a substantial interest in ensuring that we have a sanctified election so that the laws are followed about specifically when the ballot boxes can be available for dropping off absentee ballots. There's a rule that says when this is allowed to occur. They say Georgia election law that's written in the law. Now, if you don't like this rule, you got to change the rules. You have to rewrite this statute. You don't just get to just change things in the middle of an election. Georgia election law requires that ballot boxes must be closed when advanced voting is not being conducted. That's the law. Pursuant to this law, the advanced voting period ends the Friday before the election. So it's over. On Friday. Done. No more advanced voting. The law says that. Subsection D1B. D1B further states that, quote, the voting shall occur only on the days specified in this paragraph, and counties and municipalities shall not be authorized to conduct advance voting on any other days. Clear as day. Don't have the power. So, in Fannyland, where anybody can do whatever they want with no consequences at all, on November 1st, plaintiff discovered that Fulton County has authorized elections to be opened from the hours of 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on November 2nd and 3rd, Saturday and Sunday. Wait. It already says you can't do that. It ends on Friday. The law says it specifically. So they opened on Saturday and Sunday because who cares? November 2nd and 3rd are outside of the advanced voting period authorized by the law. The law says that any additional drop boxes shall be geographically distributed by population in the county. Let's be clear about that, right? The county's a big county. Where do they want to put the drop boxes? Oh, yeah, in the centralized city centers where there are going to be high propensities of Democrat voters. They're not popping up drop boxes in rural locations where there will be red voters. They drop them in where they need to increase the turnout of a specific type of vote. However, Fulton County, their stated intention is to only open some drop boxes, tacitly acknowledging that Fulton County is contrary to the law. Drop boxes must be closed, right? They're saying we're opening some. So we were immediately notified. We told them immediately, this is a violation of Georgia's law. Ballot box closure laws are in place. But Fannie and Fulton County, they refused to take any effective action to ensure that state election laws were complied with. Why is Fannie not prosecuting these people? There's a clear violation of Georgia law. Don't open the drop boxes. They opened 4 of them. They posted it on their website. Maybe she's on a cruise. Now, this court, they say, should issue a temporary restraining order. The purpose of the restraining order is to stop an ongoing harm. Here, it's warranted. The damage to us would begin in only a few hours as soon as the drop boxes are opened. They cannot be harmed by following the law. We're not asking them to do anything other than to follow the law. So what damage is going to come upon them? And granting the injunction, all that does by granting us the power is it just allows the status quo to continue. The law is clear. The timing of when drop boxes may be open is codified. It's written. You can read it. This way, it can be done in an equitable manner across all 159 counties. If Fulton County can violate Georgia state law, it would make the entire conduct of this election arbitrary because they can do whatever they want. And they do. No one cares. Judge McAfee's like, yeah, well, it's, It wasn't that bad of a lie. Just the noxious odor for him. The threat of irreparable harm to the moving party is real. Once these illegally cast absentee ballots are accepted, it's going to be impossible to separate them out. And this will be allowing illegal absentee ballots to be collected after the rules say no. So we want a declaration as well. We say they should be told to cease any and all violations of the law. It's already over. It's Monday. Not permit persons to hand return their absentee ballots, and award plaintiffs their actual costs and attorney's fees. And so this was all submitted. You can see just how reckless and how they don't even care about the laws or the rules. They just do whatever they want and whatever they can get away with. And they got away with it because here is what the judge sounded like when they had an emergency hearing over the weekend on it.
As long as it's in compliance with Georgia's, because here's the thing, those registrar's offices that are open, those 4, have been open this whole time. Is that correct, Ms. Joe?
Yes. They've been open for advance voting.
They've been open for people to come in to hand in their absentee ballots the entire time.
They've also had drop boxes, Your Honor. I mean, I understand that.
I understand,
yeah.
but we all need to forget the word Dropbox even exists, because it's not really relevant or germane to this conversation as I see it. So, but those offices, Ms. Joe, North Fulton, South Fulton Annex, downtown, and Union City, were open for absentee voters to hand deliver their absentee ballots.
Yeah, that's right. They were
Having
open.
had limited time to consult with our department, I'm going to ask that Ms. Williams jump in if this is incorrect, but it's my understanding that yes, your statement is accurate.
Well, let's put Ms. Williams under oath real quick before I ask her that question about that. Ms. Williams, can you raise they have announced that they are keeping over 4 locations: the North Fulton Annex, the South Fulton Annex, the downtown office located at 130, I believe it's 130 Peachtree, correct?
Yes.
As well as the main registrar's office in Union City. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have all of those locations been open during the pendency or since early voting began, I believe on October 15th? Have they been open for
so that's great.
absentee ballot holders to hand deliver their absentee ballots?
Apparently they're allowed to.
Yes, these are our regular office locations.
The point is about
they're
closing
not newly
it
established. These are regular offices
on Saturday and Sunday
year round, and they have been open through the duration of this election.
And is the procedure that is going to be used or that is proposed to be used today, tomorrow, and Monday the exact same procedure that has been in place since early voting began on October 15th?
Is that the point?
Yes, a voter can walk in, fill out an affidavit, and drop off their absentee ballot. That is the procedure at all of those locations.
And have all of those locations been open to poll watchers since early voting began?
No, those are our offices. So they're not polls. Therefore, there's no poll watchers that come into the facility. But we do have election monitors that have been in our facility.
And Your Honor, that was my point that I maybe didn't artfully put forward, is credentials are done by location and by day. We have credentials for polling locations. These are not polling locations. And that's why I was talking about meaningful access. And we couldn't even, and when you put a last minute
Mr. Kaufman, hold on. Ms. Williams, I think I understand your concern, Mr. Kaufman. Ms. Williams, has it been possible? Could a poll watcher apply? You said you've had observers. Is there a process in place by which a poll watcher can access these locations, be it from any party?
Right.
Green, Libertarian, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter.
So again, these are our offices, they're our regular business offices where we conduct elections. It's my understanding, since they're not polls, that we have never, since I have been here, poll watchers in our offices, because they're not polls.
Have you ever had an application for a poll watcher to come to these 4 locations? Ever? From any party that you know of?
I have never seen a party of any party request to be a poll watcher in our office. No.
And you've been receiving absentee ballots there since this code section has been in place.
For the decade that I know of,
this is all meaningless. Like, it's about the timing.
So there's been no change in procedure because of the opening of these locations for these additional 3 days.
No, none at all.
Okay.
The judge is just looking for a reason to keep them open. Oh, nothing's changed. So what's a few more days?
Ms. Kaufman, do you have Mr. Kaufman? I'm going to ask Mr. Kaufman if he's got any questions for Ms. Williams, and then Ms. Joe and Mr. Kastorf, I'll allow you the same.
Sure. Ms. Williams, when did you first receive notice of the intent to have these 4 locations?
Mr. Kaufman, we're talking to her about poll watching.
What?
Okay. Well, I wanted to know when, because we would have, okay.
How would you have known? Because they've been open since October 15th and nobody's applied since October 15th.
Wow.
Isn't it true that people apply?
This judge is arguing with him? That is totally inappropriate. That's their argument to make. And if they just, so this is unbelievable. So they just announced that, yes, they were open. Nobody has a problem with the fact that they were open on October 15th. Nobody cares. The problem is that they're going to continue to be open on Saturday and Sunday.
Poll watching credentials, in your experience, for where there are polls, and that is the sole place to apply for?
If you're asking me if we received poll watcher credential letters from all the parties to go to our polling sites for advanced voting, to go to our polling sites for election day, yes, we have received those and created badges, etc., in regards to allowing poll watchers to come into advanced voting and election day.
Right. And isn't it true that each a poll application is specific for a specific watcher at a specific poll for a specific day? Correct?
There's no application. What we receive from the parties is a list of their poll watchers and the poll watchers' credential letters. And then we make badges for those poll watchers to go to the locations that the party has requested the poll watcher to be assigned. And the requests we have received are for the advanced voting locations and the election day locations.
Do you consider the Fulton County Elections Hub and Operations Center a poll location?
No, it was a poll location.
Right. So how can you have monitors there?
It is advanced voting ended yesterday. So there is no active voting at the Elections Hub. It is not an election day site. It is now an office, and it will be for tabulation. And we have received poll watcher requests from all the parties to view a tabulation at the Elections Hub. And we have created badges and
not at the drop-off location.
Followed procedures in regards to allowing that.
Correct. And when was the application deadline to apply for poll watchers in Fulton County?
Okay.
It's the same for all the states in Georgia, and I don't have that date in front of me.
Okay.
But we follow the exact deadline per the SOS calendar and the election rule.
Okay. And isn't it true, we can all agree that that application deadline has passed, correct?
I don't have the date in front of me, so
what?
I would have
Come
to
on,
confirm
Nadine.
that.
Okay. So you're saying that the Fulton County Republican Party could apply right now for poll watchers, or is that closed?
First of all, the Republican Party has already submitted their poll watcher deadline, their poll watcher lists and credential letters. We've already received that from the Republican Party.
Yeah, because there was a deadline, right?
And I will look up the date of when the deadline is due, but we've already received that from pretty much all the parties.
I think it's 14 days before the election.
But
let's see.
The point being is that the deadline has likely passed. Would you agree with that?
If you give me a second.
She's looking it up now. He's asking her to speculate.
Well, I'll give her a chance to look it up, Mr. Kaufman.
Yeah, give her a chance. The election's tomorrow. Let's see.
21-2408.
The deadline for the November election, deadline to submit poll watch for designation letters is November the 2nd, which is today.
Okay. And then you would agree with me, made this press release yesterday, and so
we're supposed to apply for poll workers at your new location
how
right
would
now.
a party know? Strike that. You agree with me? This press release was put out yesterday afternoon, correct? About these 4 new locations, or these 4 locations that'll be open.
Okay, so yes, a press release was submitted yesterday but it's our offices. It is not new polling locations. So there is nothing to report to the poll watchers because I'm not opening new polling sites. These are literally our offices that are open year round.
So can we have poll
there would
watchers
be
there?
really no way for someone to apply for a poll watcher location for a place that's not a poll in order to observe this tomorrow or today.
I don't believe the code says that poll watchers go into offices.
That's why you have it going into your offices. Yeah,
tell me
we know.
that is allowed for a poll watcher to be watching an office.
That's why you have them coming to your office, isn't it?
So you contend that you have a voluntary Fulton County monitors and that's the sufficient safeguard. Is that your position?
I'm not understanding your question.
Well,
once they drop off the ballots.
I'm not going to ask her to make that legal conclusion,
it's
Mr. Kaufman.
Okay.
That's a legal conclusion I'm not going to ask her to make.
So you just you're objecting for
you would agree with me
Ms.
that
Joe?
It's a fact that neither the Republican Party nor the Democrat Party knew to or filed a poll watcher application for the Fulton County Elections Hub and Operations Center for this weekend, correct?
It's not a poll, so no, they would not.
Okay,
no
and
watchers.
so is your understanding? Strike that, Your Honor. That's where I'll leave it. I think the point's made.
Miss Joe?
The court has already posed all of the questions that I would have asked her.
Of course they did. Of course he did.
Mr. Kastorf.
No. Yeah, that's great. No, Judge, you did a great job. Thanks for handling that for me. I don't have any questions at all. You took care of that for me. I've actually just been sitting here on my phone playing this game here. Not even worried about it. Thank you. Great job.
Your Honor.
Okay.
Judge, we know what you're going to do.
To close, to not permit persons to hand return their absentee ballots in violation of OCGA 21-2-382 and 21-2-385. I do not believe that it is a violation of those 2 code sections. I find,
of course,
that it's not a violation of those 2 code sections for a voter to hand return their absentee ballots. The second part of that is issue an injunction not to accept absentee ballots in a Dropbox today, tomorrow, or Monday, to which I've heard consent from Miss Joe and Mr. Kastorf. Do you also agree with that position, that would be impermissible and those votes would be null and void?
Ballots that are dropped in Dropbox.
That are placed into a Dropbox today, tomorrow, or Monday. If they were able to find a Dropbox, those votes would not be valid.
We agree that the Dropbox period is closed. Yes,
the Dropbox period is over, but they can go drop them off at offices in Fulton County downtown.
I'm not going to grant your prayer for relief, Mr. Kaufman. I think it's permissible under the code section, under 382 and 385.
Yeah, great job, Judge. Did a great job for the government.
385A specifically, and 382, I believe it's A as well.
So they're going to go drop them off in Fanny's Dropbox.
Yes, both 382A and 385A. Permit voters to hand deliver their absentee ballots, voters or the other folks authorized under 385A to deliver the absentee ballots. I'm not going to address the poll watching situation because it wasn't pled, so I'm not going to address that at all. But I'm going to deny your relief as requested today, Mr. Kaufman. Anything else from the petitioner?
All right. So about what you'd expect.
2 things. One is that to the extent that there's to the Dropbox that part be granted, and
I'm granting. Yeah. Dropboxes shall not be in place, nor any votes placed into any said drop boxes be accepted if they are delivered on November 3rd, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th.
Correct. So
I'll grant that. Sure.
Yeah. And then I guess we probably will ask for a certificate of immediate review.
Appealing
the court
it.
will grant that that request.
Oh my gosh, it's in the same building.
While you consider that, Your Honor, may I ask the court to consider it's sticking with its original intent to just deny the relief, because putting into your order that you are granting relief indicates that there is a need and that he has made a showing that we are in violation of the Dropbox provision, which there has been no evidence that we are.
Specific, it's not specific in their publication. It says for hand return. It doesn't say hand return to the registrar's office or anything else. It says hand return their absentee ballots, and these locations had drop boxes, and we were taking their word for it based upon timing when this was done. It's closed. I can't even independently verify, but it would act that as a injunction.
You can't get someone down to Union City and see if there's a drop box there, Mr. Kaufman?
Well,
that's the only place that had a drop box.
The North Fulton Annex had a drop box, I believe, Your Honor. I believe I saw that myself.
They're in the same building as Fannie Willis, one of the drop boxes is. They're going to go drop it off at her desk.
Granting relief on that point, Your Honor, would essentially be telling the county to continue following the law, and I don't think that that's necessarily what.
You haven't shown that they've violated that law. You haven't shown that they have any drop boxes out. That's a fair point.
I'm not sure when I can do that between filing something at 10 and a hearing at 8 when they're inside buildings now, Your Honor, that are closed.
I'm sure.
No. The drop boxes. The drop boxes were very the Dropbox code section is pretty specific. They're not inside buildings.
No, yes, they are now, Your Honor. They're absolutely are inside the buildings and have to be observed and only open during times that the building is open and voting. That was the change. They're not outside. They're not just placed.
Judge.
And Your Honor, I would also point out that if you grant relief on that point, that does have the effect of potentially making the plaintiffs a prevailing party for their attorney's fees request, and I don't think that's appropriate under the showing that's been made today.
He's like, well, if you do it that way, then they win. He's like,
and we would join in Fulton's request. We think as a matter of justiciability, there needs to be at least some minimum showing that there is, in fact, a violation of the law to create a ripe controversy. I take Mr. Kaufman's point that he hasn't had much time to investigate, and the level of showing might be relevant to this court. But here, all we've presented is he hasn't personally verified Fulton isn't violating the law, and that's not the standard for obtaining injunctive relief.
Mr. Kaufman, you're saying they may have that stuff out there. I don't have any evidence that stuff is actually out there, that those drop boxes are actually there, as you allege.
There's nothing to be enjoined.
Can you show me where a drop box is where it's not supposed to be, Mr. Kaufman?
It's not a drop box. It's Nadine's desk. It's Fannie Willis's desk.
I received an email.
Okay, while he's looking this up, let me show you where these two buildings are. Here's if you want to go from the Dropbox to Fannie's office, here it is. It's a 4-minute walk. It's in the same building. Okay, so her office is at 136 Pryor Street, and which is right here, and the Dropbox location, or where one of these centers, is right there. All right.
My understanding is that there's one being removed today, but I don't know. That's from our correspondence outside of this. I don't know if Fulton County has removed it or not.
Fannie and Nathan Wade are there collecting them. They're like, "Hey, great to see you."
Thanks. I don't have any drop boxes out there. So I mean, to get relief, you have to have a violation, correct?
Well, yes, but in all fairness, we had a witness, and I was limited into the questions that I could have asked of Ms. Williams if there were any drop boxes still out there potentially. I don't know.
Ms. Williams, I'll ask her. Any drop boxes out there, Ms. Williams?
Okay, so we had a total of 7 drop boxes. So the ones that have been picked up were Alpharetta Library, C.T. Martin, East Roswell Library, and the Elections Hub. Those 4 have been removed because they get picked up when we pick up the advanced voting equipment. The remaining drop boxes will be picked up at 11 o'clock today when we pick up the advanced voting equipment, and they're currently locked and in a locked room at Buckhead Library, Sandy Springs Library, and Wolf Creek Library. Those will be picked up at 11 o'clock, and those last 3 are not at any of our offices, which of course is Government Center, North Annex, and South Annex. And of course, again, the Elections Hub box was already removed. So to answer your question, there's 3 that are getting picked up at 11 at Buckhead, Sandy Springs, and Wolf Creek, which is not advertised as the offices.
And are they available to the public at this time?
No, they're completely locked inside the vote. The box itself is locked, and the room that the box in is locked.
So inside a building and locked.
Mr. Kaufman?
I mean, with those representations, I think it does change a little bit that there are still physically ones not picked up. But I with those representations, Ms. Williams, I understand the court's position. Obviously, we want to make sure that they get picked up and remain sequestered until the election day when they can be used again. Absent that, I mean.
Well, actually, the drop boxes aren't going to be used on election day, are they, Ms. Williams?
No, they're not used on election day. The boxes per code were emptied at the closure. All of them were emptied at the closing of advanced voting at 7 o'clock and locked. So none of them are in use until next election.
Okay. There we go. So I don't believe I have to grant that portion of the prayer for relief and that there's no violation. So I'm going to deny your petition, Mr. Kaufman.
Will you grant a certificate of immediate review?
So that they can appeal it?
I don't know. I don't know. I'll think about it. Right now, I got to draft an order.
Okay, I don't know. I don't know, man.
Let me get to drafting, y'all.
I don't know. All right.
Thanks, Judge.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. All right. So that's what's going on in Georgia. All right. I guess turns out he did grant the certificate of immediate review. I'm pretty sure about that. But that's Georgia. So long story short, it sounds like that his legal justification for allowing these things to go on is that they weren't actually drop boxes. And so there were other drop box prohibitions. They weren't drop boxes because they were at Fannie Willis's desk. And so it's allowed to happen for the next couple days. He's going to appeal it. By the time the appeals go through, it's all done. So I'm sure the votes will count. But what's hysterical is I was making a joke that they were dropping these off at Fannie's desk, and turns out they might. So you can see I looked up this office, which is Fulton County Government Center, and they have government centers in Arizona, which is why I thought it's probably the same place. They have a bunch of stuff, like 4 or 5 different courts. The sheriff's office is over there. You've got records is over here, tons of stuff. So Fulton Government County Center, Fannie Willis's office, I looked that up over here, and apparently her office is going to be at 136 Pryor Street, which is not one of these, but it is basically around the corner. So you drop this off on Peachtree Street, and Peachtree Street is this street, but Fannie is right on just the next street over, right here, Pryor Street. So her office is on Pryor Street, 4-minute walk. So might even be in the same building. Who knows? It's just perfect. So they can drop them off over there. The judge is going to allow it to happen because it's Fannie land. And you remember in Fannie land, we had that 4 a.m. water main break. That was a big problem for everybody. And now MSNBC's Ben Winkler is out saying that, yeah, you might have something like this happen again. You might have to go to bed thinking Trump won, waking up with Kamala Harris. This is Ben Winkler.
Well, you ask people how they're doing. Some people say nauseously optimistic. I've heard that all over the state. We know that because Republicans blocked the legislation that would have allowed the early processing of mail-in ballots, we know that because Republicans blocked that bill, we won't get the final tally of those votes, which will be overwhelmingly Democratic, until the middle of the night. In 2020, it was like 3 or 4 in the morning. And that means we should expect
once they stole all the votes.
The red shift, where it seems like Trump is doing better than he is in fact doing. And then, a red mirage, and then a blue shift once those absentee ballot counts come in the middle of the night. Don't be fooled and don't be alarmed if it seems like Trump is overperforming what you'd expect when you get to midnight, because there's still that 100,000 ballot kind of big cache of ballots that have yet to be reported in Milwaukee. Because people know that that's coming, my sense is that they're fairly calm about it. We can expect all kinds of shenanigans and bogus claims from Republicans, but a ballot is a ballot is a ballot. It will be counted. They are secure. We have free and fair and secure.
Okay. Every time they say we have free, fair, and secure elections, you know they don't. You know it's the opposite of that. So get ready for this blue shift. They said this was going to happen back in 2020. We have our eyes peeled on this. Same thing happened back then. We were wrapping up our live stream here on election night 4 years ago, and it looked good. Woke up, 4 a.m. water main break in Fulton County, Fannyland, and suddenly it was stolen. So we'll keep our eyes there on that one. That guy, we know what he wants to do and what they're trying to do. We'll see if they can pull it off. Let's turn our attention now to Arizona, and then we're going to hear from you and see what you say about this one. Victory in Arizona moments before the election is upon us. America First Legal reporting that Adrian Fontes, our Secretary of State, who apparently has a list of 218,000 people who may or may not be citizens who are registered to vote, he did not want us to see who was on that list. He submitted an appeal after a lower court ordered him to disclose it, and that appeal has been rejected. And so America First Legal scores a victory here. Shout out to them. Please follow them at America First Legal on X. They said he must produce the list today. And that is like today, fresh out of the oven. We don't know if this has been produced yet or if it has been analyzed yet. We'll be waiting for an update from America First Legal on it. But they did give us this appeal victory. And you can see that here is what the Court of Appeals said. The case, of course, is against Adrian Fontes. He is the petitioner. He's appealing this because he lost. We read through the decision yesterday from Scott Blaney, which is a good decision, saying you got to give him the records. It's a records request problem. And so he said, stop this, please. Don't make me disclose the list. Now, the Court of Appeals saying we are accepting jurisdiction of this emergency petition and we're denying relief for Adrian Fontes because they've not established that the Superior Court, the lower level court from Blaney, that they have committed any legal or factual errors. And so it's ordered vacating this court's previous order in its entirety and including the obligation to file and serve a response to the petition. So in other words, you don't have to respond to this. It's now gone. It's further ordered denying the petitioner's emergency motion for a stay. That's it. So it's time for you to disclose those records and we'll see what is inside of those. So keep our eye on that. Meanwhile, elsewhere in Arizona, interesting report that apparently there were 40,000 damaged registration forms that came in at the last minute. Arizona Republic's reporting on this, telling us tens of thousands of paper voter registration forms were dropped off damaged or incomplete at the Maricopa County Recorder's Office just before the sign-up deadline. 90,000 forms were submitted by third-party groups on the last day of voter registration. Far more than they expected. Now, since then, 50,000 forms have been processed, although some were incomplete and require voters to provide additional info. But the remainder, which is an estimated 30,000 to 40,000 forms, were entirely unusable because they were torn, wet, or otherwise damaged. You know what that is? 30,000 to 40,000 forms were unusable? Just think about like 30,000 to 40,000 pieces of paper Do you know what a ream of paper is? It's like 500 pieces of paper in a ream. It's 500. Now multiply that by a lot. 40,000 forms? What forms those are? That could lead to some voter confusion at the polls. Voters who didn't completely fill out their registration form or who filled out a form that ended up damaged may have to cast a provisional ballot. If a voter with an incomplete form provides the missing info before the polls close, and the election officials determine that they were eligible to cast a ballot, then their vote will count. But if their form was damaged and unable to be processed, their ballot won't be tallied unless they were previously registered to vote. Could also slow voter check-ins, contribute to long lines. Experts say this could lead to backups. And so, my friends, make sure you have a plan if you're in Arizona. I have been texting my Arizona bros out there and telling, hey man, ballot in, ballot in, ballot in, ballot in, ballot in. And when they say, yes, it is, I say, what was the line like? What was the line like? What was the line like? 2 days ago, it was 15 minutes in some places, 30, 45 minutes in others. So tomorrow could be madness. So be prepared if you're in Arizona. Be prepared. Provisional ballots may also frustrate and anger voters. And third-party groups are often paid by the form. For years, officials around the state have said that they often receive forms with inaccuracies. Some are clearly fraudulent because they get paid by the form. Some people have Donald Duck on there, Mickey Mouse, Jerry Seinfeld. They receive deadlines. Here, they said the recorder's office received forms on the voter registration deadline that were dated weeks before. State law mandates that third-party groups submit registration forms within 5 days of collecting them. So those are invalid, right? They sign it, submit it. You can't bank and hang on to the ballots or to the forms. Said some of them don't do a good job. Now, earlier this year, the recorder's office lobbied several proposals to address the problem. How many voters could be impacted? We don't know. Kinnerup said the recorder's office has done all it can to deal with the unprecedented numbers, but there still could be 40,000 voters whose forms were damaged in limbo. Yeah. Couldn't provide an estimate on how those forms will be fixed, but it's a mess. So that's Arizona for you. Now, the Supreme Court is bracing for impact, says that they're girding for a rush of election-related litigation. This was just updated a few days ago. And this has been the most litigious election of our lifetime. Almost 200 election cases filed in courts this year. It hasn't even happened yet. The election is not over. Following 2020, there were a lot of appeals. For this year, a lot more coming. The Supreme Court, 6-3 conservative majority, 60 lawsuits in 2020 that didn't go anywhere. RNC has launched a bunch of these things, and things are going to be lit. So we're going to be here, my friends. We're going to be covering all of this. We've covered a lot of these cases, so you know what's happening out there. Lawsuits galore. We'll be covering it. Thanks for joining us as we do. Thanks for subscribing. And hopefully, we don't need to cover many lawsuits. Hopefully, there is a resounding victory tomorrow for President Trump and the MAGA movement. And there don't need to be any lawsuits at all because it's settled, clear as day. We're going to cover it, my friends. Now, if you're just joining us, here's a quick brief on the updates. We talked Missouri, telling the DOJ monitors to get bent. Pennsylvania, 277,000 votes that are concerning. Judges don't care. We also talked about Georgia in Fannyland and 2 legal issues. One was a victory on not counting absentee ballots. The other, apparently they can drop ballots off at Fanny's desk, and this judge is just totally cool with it. In Arizona, we're going to see what's on that list at some point, and we now have apparently 40,000 ballots or registered voters who may or may not be registered because those forms are problematic. And so a lot of good stuff we covered today, my friends. Some of the final highlights in the lawfare world. We're coming back tomorrow, of course, to get into it on Election Day. Hopefully your votes are in. We'll be here, as a reminder, live starting 5 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to go into the night wherever she may take us. And I'm excited to have you join us as we do. It's going to be a lot of fun. But now, my friends, let's hear from you. Let's see what you say about all this. I saw some very nice donos and some generous support that has come in. Thank you for sending these items in and for supporting us. And if you're a new member who just joined us as a member, we had a members only stream this morning. We had some great videos I posted last week from my event with Tucker and Trump. Not that I was on the stage or anything. I attended the event, as you know. But we had a lot of fun. And so, my friends, we are going over to locals as soon as we're done here. And, yeah, a question about my eye from Jennifer. Please don't take it the wrong way, but is your eye okay? Says Jennifer. Yeah, I was wondering if I was going to get asked about this. Here's from Jennifer. Yeah, my eye's okay. It's a funny story, actually. I was just finishing up some show prep. You know, it's election season. I was just finishing up some show prep. She's talking about, I kind of got a black eye here a little bit. Sad story. I was walking outside to go get a sandwich. Getting cold out. And I was just hungry after a long night of show prepping. And I got down to the corner. And this guy came up to me with blue hair. Kind of reminded me, he had like a Doug Emhoff vibe to him. And he came up to me. And he backhanded me right across the face. And he said, "This is Kamala country." And I said, "That's it?" It caused no mark at all. And then I went to jujitsu. Then my head hit the mat pretty hard. So that's how that happened. That's all it was. Yeah, it's just a little bit of a black eye, man. Yeah, it's just a little bit of a black eye. I got one over here too. I was getting my head pounded into the mat, basically, is all that was. A little jujitsu on Saturday. That's all it is. Yeah, so it'll go away. It'll go away soon. But that's all it was. Did you like my story? All right. Thanks for letting me try it. All right. Hey, what? It's Monday already. It's Kamala country. Yeah, I mean, he didn't do anything. It felt like somebody opened a breeze. But Doug Emhoff, he has a history of beating women, as we know, allegedly. What's going on? Hey, it's the Munkets. What's up? Tony Hay Munkets is here. We got Tony Hay Munkets is bringing in 5 new membos. We got Golden Gaming is here. Arkansas Diamond, Tokyoto Ambassador. We got Christopher Howell, Spiky Mikey in the house. Gifted membos courtesy of Tony Hay Munkets. Thank you, Tony Hay Munkets. Hey, Knox Bierman says, Donald Trump is still going. Women for Trump rally. Tiffany and Laura spoke. All women in pink. They all must be sexist. I saw somebody also mention that Megyn Kelly was speaking tonight. That's going to be awesome. So, yeah, that's great. Let's go, baby. Final day. Okay, here's the link. Thank you, Knox, for the link. Wow, look at this. Okay, so there we go.
We are 24 hours away from sending the greatest president this country's ever seen back to the White House.
Yeah! All right, so good stuff over there. Okay, we'll keep our eye on that. Thank you, Knox. It's looking good. We've also got, thank you, Knox. Says, Donald Trump does look very tired. He's 12 years older than me, and I need a nap some days. God bless this man. Yeah, Knox. I know what you mean. I don't know if you caught it earlier, but I was explaining, like, you know, when I was practicing law, like I would be in sometimes 4 or 5 different courts a day, right? Like you're on the road, like 6 a.m., you get to the court for the 8:30 docket. You're there, race across town for the afternoon docket, spend a couple hours there. You're on the whole day. Like, hey, clients, a meeting, hey, judges, you got to be on the whole time. Then, you do two court stops in the afternoon. You're over on the East Valley. Then you drive to the West Side. You got to go north or all over the place, right? Like a super busy day. You're just traveling around town in your car. Trump goes to like 4 or 5 states in a day. States. And then does that, right? Goes on stage and like presents himself and all. It's like wild. So it's a big, it's a lot of energy, man. He should be tired. He's working his butt off. But I understand what you're saying, man. It's on fumes. We're on fumes. It's the fourth quarter, babes. What's up? Knox says, happy Monday, all. Dems looked at my birth date and sent me a text offering to give me a ride to vote because they know I care about Medicare. No. And prescription drugs, which I do not take. I did turn sexy, sultry 66 last month, so they got me pegged. Knox. Hotter every year. You're a smoke show, Knox. I can sense it. And I know it too, because you're a defense attorney too. That adds 10 points of hotness to anybody. Not that you need it, but it's just sexy as hell. Anyways, Knox, amazing. I can't believe they texted you. That's funny. Oh, so funny. You cracked me up. Thank you, Knox, for that one. Hey, what's up, Oni? Oni is in the house. Mike Nificent is coming in. We got Marcus Squintus is here.
I'm not going to follow that.
Gene Padilla.
So, kids, go back to work. Let's make sure
AJ
everybody shows up
Arguello.
tomorrow to vote, okay? Thank you.
Tom Ari's in the house. Courtesy of Oni. What's up, Paul Hoffman? Happy Election Eve, 45-47. I like the odds. Thank you, Paul Hoffman. Brian Bishop says, oh, Robert, you're making me vote so hard. Good, baby. Vote harder than you've ever voted in your life.
They love our country, but they really are good
Extra
people.
hard.
They're kind people. They have
Make it
big
count.
hearts. They're strong. They can be nasty, but they have big hearts, those great children of mine.
What's up, Charlotte Miller?
So here are some of the facts. Kamala is a radical left Marxist rated even worse than crooked Bernie Sanders and crazy Bernie Sanders. I don't know, do I call him crooked? I'd say probably crazy, maybe for him is a better term.
Well, either one. Yeah,
and
either one.
Pocahontas herself.
Pocahontas, too, is one of the worst. Hey, Charlotte Miller, thanks for becoming a supporter. NY What's Up says, so in the crazy timeline where Kamala is president and a Republican Senate, they would not confirm Cheney. That's really, it just makes you sick to even think about it. Hey, Fred Pedamonte, did you see Pasatino's interview with Tucker? No, I did see he was on Tucker, but I have not watched it yet, which I don't know that I'll be able to watch it before the election. It's been like pretty much election fever over here. What's up, Fred Pedamonte? Tony Hay Munkets bringing in 4 membos, or 5. Nancy Jennings, Valerie Hoffman, Starman 9766 is here, and Jeff gifted membos courtesy of Tony Hay Munkets. Thank you, Tony Hay Munkets. Hey, Nancy Jennings says one of the BLM founders is backing Trump. Is that right? Welcome aboard. Good, good, good. Glad to have one member. Hey, Jay New says, I'm behind, but pretty sure the Georgia ruling is out from the Court of Appeals. I think you might be right about that, Jay New. Was that the one? Oh, you mean from the... Interesting. Okay, maybe we'll have that pulled up for tomorrow. Thank you, Jay New. I think I know which one you're talking about. Thank you for that, Jay New. Thanks for the dono. We'll be back here tomorrow all day. We'll keep our eye on a bunch of things. Hey, Bruce Wayne is in the house with a baby. Bruce Wayne, 9 months as a member. Good to see you, Bruce Wayne. Says baby needs some new shoes. What kind of shoes? Like Batman shoes? Thank you, Bruce Wayne. Hey, what's up? More here is here. More here is here. Bringing in 5 more friends. Ice Sickle is here. Kat Johnson, what's up, Debbie Do? Shooting Stuff is in the house, courtesy of More here. Ollie is bringing in 1 membo called Troublemaker Jonah. Welcome. Pang 1 is bringing in himself for 17 months. Thank you, Pang 1, for being here for 17 full months. Outstanding to have you. Lenny Malley sending a reminder in to like this video, share this video, social media platform this video like you've never liked and subscribed before. We got Matt Ostrander says, I vote absentee every election due to my job, oil and gas. I live in West Virginia. No drop boxes in my county, mail or hand deliver only. Postmark day of, no later. Yeah, that sounds like absolutely reasonable. There are rules. You have to follow the rules. And we have different infrastructure procedures so that fraud is not prevalent. Thank you, Matt. Thanks for the explanation. Sheila Pooh says atrocious. Exactly. She just said that early voting closed on Friday. That means his questions are irrelevant. Right, if early voting is closed, it's closed. You don't get to open absentee ballots in Fannie's office so you can get high propensity Democrat voters to come out and just drop their ballots off at your desk. Jennifer says, everyone can and should poll watch. It is your right and your duty, fam. It's your right and your duty, fam, from Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer. Get out there, my friends. Sheila Poo, do they need to file an appeal to preserve post-election litigation? Well, that's... yeah, I mean, that's why they're doing a lot of these lawsuits, especially the ones that are happening right now, because then they can come back and say, see, let's say Kamala Harris wins by 1,000 votes in Georgia. They come back out and they say, no. You collected these absentee ballots, 1,000 of them, illegally on Saturday and Sunday and Monday. You're not supposed to do that in violation of Georgia law. We filed a lawsuit. We made our arguments in court. The judge overruled us. We appealed it. So every one of those ballots, because we lodged a complaint, should be disqualified and should have never been collected in the first place. And they should not count. So then you add a bunch of those up. And honestly, I don't know how many people are going to drop their ballots off at these 4 locations. Is it 10? Is it 1,000? I don't know. I don't care. The rules are what the rules are. You're not supposed to change them in the middle of an election. And if you want to change the rules, you got to change the statutes. You don't just get to have Fani Willis pop up whatever she wants. Thank you, Sheila. Here's one from Sheila. Says, there is not even a pretense of being nonpartisan. From that judge was doing the government's job for them. Ray Ronk says the judge looks around literally and says, I don't see any drop boxes. Just wow. Yeah, he had an attitude for sure against the other side. Was arguing for them and didn't even allow him to answer questions that would have been good. Nikki Perez, 16 months as a membo, says, hey, added another grandbaby since being a member. Like probably a real one. I think I see a new grandbaby in your lap right there. Nikki Perez, happy 16 months. Thanks for being here for so long and supporting us so heartedly. And congratulations on your new grandbaby. Welcome to your real grandbaby to the world. Hopefully watching the show too. Hey, Rick D. Rick D says, Robert Govea, this is leaked footage of white dudes for Harris. LOL. Leaked footage of white dudes for Harris. That's a risky click if I've ever seen one. Well, be careful on that. Sheila Poo, 1,000,000 hugs to you. Whoa, 10 membos coming in. Thank you, Sheila. Welcome aboard, new friends. William Terrell, Pixel Chick, Leonard Nimoy, RMF is here, Chad Galloway. We got Brian Norwood, Jessica C. We got Shockwave Rider, MTQ, Pete, the truth will set you free. All gifted membos, courtesy of Sheila Poo. 1,000,000 hugs to you. Thank you, Sheila, for 10 membos. Jennifer was asking about my eyeball. Doug Emhoff did it to me when I was just trying to buy a sandwich. Golly. Hey, Andel's History says there is no way to recuse a biased judge during a case. Is there no way? Well, there is. Yeah, I mean, you can file a motion to recuse. And there's also other places where you might be able to file a notice for a change of judge. Like in Arizona, we've got mechanisms. If you have a biased judge and you have some basis for that, you can just, as a matter of right, ask for a new judge. But this was an emergency hearing and probably not enough time for any of that. Like, that was the only judge they were getting, I would guess. They filed it and had a hearing, I think, the same day. Was that the same day? Anyways. And it's Fulton County. They have a problem in general. Hey, John McGarvey said the Elon, the JRE just dropped. Elon was on Joe Rogan? Is that what that is saying? I don't even know. From John McGarvey. Interesting. Hey, Zulu. What's up, Zulu? Thanks for modding down the fort for us, bringing 10 new membos in. James Fitch, you're coming in here, courtesy of Zulu. Shadow Seeker. Cornbread is here. Audra DeLeon, Lee, Paramed Angela, Water Earth Mud, Nick Matthews, and Alicia, gifted membos. Hey, DCL got gifted a membo too. Thank you for that, Zulu, for bringing in membos. And check out the stream from this morning, new membos. We had some good time talking about the final polls and stuff. And so check those out. We've also got Rick D. Thank you, Rick. Rick's bringing in 5 membos. Drek Novisky is here. Salty, name redacted. Brady Vaughn, John Carroll, and Summer Sunrise. Gifted membos, courtesy of Rick D. Thank you, Rick, for bringing in new friends. And thank you, everybody, for those generous donos. Thanks for supporting our work and for being here, watching the show with us. I want to say what's up to our friends on X before we call it a day and wrap it up before we go over to locals. Couple comments here. One from Fred Petamonte. Hey, here's a good reminder from Fred and Johnny. Says, vote! Get out there and vote! Or this little guy is going to be heartbroken and really sad. We don't want that to happen. What's up, B-Torn? James Pepper. What's up, Independent Mind? Independent Mind. What a nice thing to say. Thanks, Rob Bob. Thanks, Tiff Dog. Wow says, what's the plan for tomorrow? Remember, the election is tomorrow, so get out there and vote. James Pepper says, you remember when they kicked us off X 4 years ago? I do. I didn't get kicked off X, but we certainly suffered our strikes on YouTube. So plan tomorrow, my friends. 5 p.m. Eastern, we'll go live. Then I think we'll start to see some polls close. 6:30, 7, 8. We'll be streaming late. We might order a pizza. We might, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows? We might be bracing for impact. I don't even know what's happening. It's going to be a lot of fun. So the point is, tomorrow morning, we're going to have our members stream in the morning. So we'll have a regular schedule there. Then we'll come back and we're streaming all night. And I'm not joking. I might order a pizza. We're going to hang out. We're going to just watch the returns come in. Might have some people who want to come by the show. Don't know. We'll have poll updates. We're going to cover all the news. So New York Times, all of the main releases. And then we also have, I have this thing, I think I shared with locals, but I haven't disclosed that here yet or shared that here yet, disclosed. Who do you think you are? I have the 4x4s so we can pull up Fox, MSNBC, CNN, and I think the BBC. We can pull all those up on the screen. We're just going to watch the returns come in. We're going to have tons of information pouring in. We're going to be waiting for the results with our good friends, and we hope you join us. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be a lot of fun, starting 5 p.m. Eastern. So, my friends, thank you for joining us today. We want to thank our amazing mods and meme smiths. We got Playin Hooky, Donut. Yeah, tomorrow's going to be a long one. It's going to be great. So we could be like 8 hours here. I don't even know. Hopefully not. Hopefully it's just red wave all across America. But okay, thank you, Playin Hooky. Thank you, K-Bean. Thank you, Donut Mind Me. Thank you, John McGarvey. Thank you, Zulu, for the mods and for keeping the channel and the train on the tracks here. We're grateful for it. We are, my friends, going to go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Then tomorrow, we're going to be back here to get into it again. And we're going to need to see you here after you've voted and made sure everyone you know and love and ever spoke to at any point in your life for all time throughout history, you're making sure they're voting too. And they're voting harder than they've ever voted before. I want to see some sore index fingers. You know what I'm saying? Because you're voting like, not that hard though. Don't break the paper, okay? But make sure it counts. You know what I'm saying? All right. So my friends, we're going to leave it there. We're going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. We'd love to see you over there, but if we don't, we are coming back here tomorrow to get into it again. Election Day 2024. I couldn't be more excited to get into it and go through it with you here. And so to do that properly, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well and vote like America's life depends on it. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Make it a great night. Bye-bye.